When we talk about the Bhagavat, nobody talks about the Bhagavat as the Bhagavat. Everyone who knows the Bhagavat would refer to it as Srimad Bhagavat. Srimad Bhagavat, with respect. It's like Guru Granth Sahib, right? It is like the Quran Sharif. So you speak of a text with such reverence, with such extraordinary feeling, that you prepare yourself mentally to receive something very, very special. The Bhagavat, the narrative, it takes us into a different world altogether, not the world you and I live in. And I remember on this occasion an event in Zurich many years ago. We had the Festival of India and Switzerland at that time at the Museum Wittenberg. Friends of mine were responsible for it. And one of the performances on that occasion was a Kudiyattam performance. The great troupe from the south had come. Hardly anybody knew what Kudiyattam was all about. And a friend of mine who directed the museum at that time, Eberhard Fischer, he announced that tomorrow there is going to be an open session before the performance began for a whole day. The actors will be preparing themselves, putting on makeup for the performance. And it fell to my lot to lead people into that. There's a big hall. We entered there, and lots of people were, getting prepared, putting on this very elaborate makeup, we all know. And man lying sort of on the back, head in the lap of another person who's very painstakingly, putting on the makeup and so on. And these young Swiss boys and girls, men and women, were very curious to see how long is it going to take, this makeup. And the Guruji who was with them is a tough man. Gurujis have to be tough. And some of them asked me, please ask Guruji for us, why can't they use modern materials for this kind of makeup which is taking them 6 to 7 hours to put on? It took me courage to ask this question of the Guruji. But I did manage that courage and I asked him. And the Guruji got very annoyed. And he said, these people don't know anything. I said, obviously, they don't know anything. That's why they're asking a question. He says, tell them that as we lie down, head in the lap of another person, painstakingly doing, we are preparing ourselves to enter the world of the gods this evening. We need this silence. We need this withdrawal into ourselves. It's not simply a technical matter. This silence which we build within ourselves is what it is all about. And I was very impressed with that. When we look at a manuscript like this, the Bhagavat that I'm going to share with you, we can be sure that we are going to be led into a totally different world. In the world of the gods, where strange things, marvelous things happen. And you and I, as mere mortals, witness and are being made witness to these extraordinary deeds. It's not a story. It is much more than a story. It is much more than a simple linear kind of a narrative. What we are going to look at are works which are felt, deeply felt. Inside of themselves, the painters remain unknown. There is not a single painter's name which occurs in this particular manuscript. But they must have thought very, very deeply about these things. The language, the vocabulary, the grammar of Indian art is reasonably familiar to us. But this particular manuscript has something very special to offer. I found this in the collection of the San Diego Museum of Art, where a great collector by the name of Edwin Binney, who lived in San Francisco, in San Diego, and he had purchased this in an auction or in a sale in London. Obviously, it had come out of the Royal Collection of Mysore. There are a number of volumes that disappeared, vandalized, and so on and so forth. And this happened to reach or get into the lap of Edwin Binney. Before he died, he sold, part gifted his entire collection to the museum. And I was a consultant to the museum at that particular time, and I found this particular bound volume in that collection. And I was startled, absolutely stunned to see the quality of the work inside of it. Stuck in my mind, and I thought I should do something about it. C.K. Prahlad was the one who immediately said, "No, you have to do it." He donated some money to the museum for production of this particular book. This was 2002, something like nearly 20 years ago. But the museum didn't do anything about it. Long story. Directors kept changing, curators came and went, and so on and so forth. But finally it came through, and I have now the pleasure of offering this book for you to enter, not to read, but to enter. Because visual entry and mental entry into a work of art is the essence of the whole thing. When we see this, there will be a bit of a confusion. I was confused to begin with, because the drawing is very ordinary. The color is the one which holds everything together. And the imagination, the innovation, the freedom with which the painter plays with time and space, completely regardless of what should be happening in the logical event of things and so on and so forth. They're manipulating time, just completely playing with it, so to speak. And space, he can wish, in the Vishwatashvatar Upanishad, there's a wonderful saying, Jada charmavad akasham vaishteshanti manava. When man will be free, when he is able to take up space, wrap it around his loins and walk off with it, like a sannyasi would. Space being wrapped around your loins, and in a certain sense, you can do anything with it. That is what Indian painters used to do, and that is what the painter or the group of painters who are responsible for this Srimad Bhagavata did. However, when we talk about the Srimad Bhagavata, we ordinarily immediately think of Krishna, because the 10th skanda of the Bhagavad is all devoted to the deeds of Krishna. The avatars are all gone, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the 9 skandhas before that, but it is the 10th skanda the greatest interest in the Srimad Bhagavat, in a certain sense, arises in our minds. But what do we see of Krishna in Indian painting? His childhood, his birth, his growing up in Vrindavan, Gokul, Mathura area, all the great enchantment of Krishna as a mohana, right? As somebody who really charms everyone, just about everyone. The gopis are all in love with him. He fights this demon, that demon, and so on and so forth. He plays on his flute constantly. The Rasa Leela, the Jalakrida, and so on. All of that we are familiar with. However, the 10th skanda is of 2 parts, the Purvardha and the Uttarardha. The first half, former half, and the latter half. This volume has only the second half, in which the childhood of Krishna is completely eliminated. in which we don't see him playing upon his flute, we don't see him charming the gopis and so on, taking them into the waters and so on and so forth. He has now become the king of Dwaraka. And it is from that onward that this whole thing begins. So if we are going to be looking at this particular manuscript in the hope of seeing, the irresistible charm of Krishna, it is not there. So we might prepare ourselves in a certain sense to see a very different Krishna, a very different Balarama, brother of Krishna. Very different events taking place. Krishna is now no longer the universal master of the hearts of everyone and so on. He is timid sometimes. He has to run for his life. He has to face, enemies of great implacable strength and so on, like Jarasandha, Shishupal and so on and so forth and so on. So this keeps happening in this particular manuscript. But enough of my words. What I will take you to are a group of pictures, and I'll concentrate upon some details to, in a certain sense, acquaint you with the whole idea that these painters were taking a leap, really an extraordinary leap into the dark when they rendered something which approached nearly complete abstraction. Nearly complete abstraction. We'll see that. Now, this image is almost at the very beginning of the manuscript. It has been published several times. The card of invitation carries it. The mountain is set on fire. Krishna and Balaram have not been able to escape the wrath of Jarasandha Magadha, and they have to fend for themselves. And they hide themselves in this particular mountain. And Jarasandha asks his armies to set the whole mountain on fire. And you see it slowly. Wherever you look at in this particular painting, there are licking tongues of flames and so on. But we also see Krishna and Balaram twice. Once at the very top. At the very top, the two figures, Krishna, dark-bodied, and Balaram, his brother, they are up there. And everyone is looking for them. The soldiers are looking for them because they have to be hunted down. And then when they are unable to hide themselves any further, they jump, and then we see them at the extreme bottom right, the tiny little figures, Krishna and Balaram. Then they flee even from this particular mountain. If we do not know this, if we do not pay attention, if we do not see with the sharpness that the painters expect us to see things with and so on and so forth, we will completely miss the point. But what will stay with you and me is the intensity of color. The intensity of color. रंग का उमड़ा हुआ सैलाब है हर सू मगर रूह के अंधे मुसव्विर को कहाँ पहचान है. The flood, the avalanche of color that we will see in these paintings is irresistible. But we can move further. Next one, please. This is how the opening folio of the manuscript is. The city of Dwaraka, the painter's imagination. The city of Dwaraka, which has been built by the ocean side, by Krishna and by the divine architects and so on. Now just look at the detail of this particular painting. It's an orderly, organized rectangle within rectangle. Outside there are the fortifications and so on. Then you get into this. There are all kinds of things happening. But takes the imagination of these painters to lead us into a world which you and I have not seen or are likely to see, but order, discipline, action, balanced, perfectly balanced. In between, in the heart of the picture, you can see the next slide. In the heart of the picture, and we see the left half, this is a double page, there is a court being held by one of the Yadava rulers, and there is a pillar towards the extreme right, if you can see for yourselves, upon which there is an animal which is descending, clinging on to the pillar. What that animal is a kind of a dark-bodied, cheetah-like thing and so on. I've tried to ask a number of people, maybe somebody here can help, whether it is a part of the insignia of the royal Mysore court and so on and so forth. We don't know. But detail upon detail, processions, weddings, domestic quarrels, soldiers walking around and so on. It's teeming with people. Next one, please. Like this. Right half, exactly the same thing happening. So there may be something like 200 figures which the painter has brought into the city of Dwarka. It's not a question of numericals. It's not a question of how many people you are able to fit onto a page. But it is the invocation of a new city which has qualities which no other city does possess. Next one. This is what the manuscript looks like in its present state. Worm-eaten. There's a kind of silken cloth. Worm-eaten. You can see the holes, all over the place. There was obviously a label, which is embroidered name of the Uttararth of the Bhagavata Purāna, which has been eaten into. Some librarian must have put a label sort of paper, stuck on it. This is what the manuscript physically looks like. Next one, please. Just to give you an idea. Next one, please. This is the stamp of the Royal Court of Mysore. His Highness Raja of Mysore. Right? This is on the manuscript itself, opening pages. And in between, you can barely see it. There's a kind of a lion which used apparently by the British and so on at that particular time. Next one, please. This is how an ordinary page looks with no illustration. Next one, please. There are some in which space has been left for a painting to be filled in, as if somebody had a very clear idea of what is going to happen. Next one, please. This is what towards the end, when illustrations all come to an end and only the text with little labels and at the top remain. Next one, please. And this is the man, this young boy, who succeeded to the court of Mysore, throne of Mysore, at the age of 5. Muhammadi Krishnaraja, Vodiyar. Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan have all been taken care of by the British. And they want to bring back as a titular kind of a ruler, a man who belonged to the dynasty which used to rule Mysore. And this little sketch by Francis Buchanan, who traveled through this area, Krishnaraja and sovereign of Mysore. This is a 5-year-old, wet behind the ears, young Krishnaraja, whom we see. Next one, please. And this is what he became towards the end of his life. So between his age of 5 years and before he died, somewhere in that particular period, this manuscript, along with a large number of others, which Charanjit Singh had drawn attention to and so on, were painted. It's a period of renaissance as far as Mysore is concerned. The number of people who gathered at the Mysore court, the poets, the writers, the painters, the architects, the muralists, and so on and so forth. It's an enormous amount was happening at that particular time. And this particular manuscript that I'm drawing your attention to happens to be just one just one tiny little fraction of the totality of what was being produced at that particular time. Next one, please. But just to give you an idea, this is not a part of the manuscript. It's an outside thing that I'm importing. It belongs to a collection here in Bangalore. The status which the Bhagavata Purāna occupies in the heart of devotees. There are 18 Mahapuranas, and towards the left of the painting, there is a kind of darbar, so to speak. In the center, on the largest throne, is placed the Bhagavata Purāna. And around it, like darbaris in a court, are the images of other Puranas. This is Brahma Vaivarta, Brahma Purana, Padma Purana, Vishnu Purana, and so on and so forth. They're all seated like this around the great Srimad Bhagavat. And to the right is the graphic representation of how the Bhagavat was communicated, the transmission of the tradition. At the very top, next one please. This is the image of the Bhagavata Purana in the center, and the number of shlokas in each Purana are all given there. This has 19,000, this has 40,000, this Brahmana Purana has 14,000, Matsya Purana has 4,000, and so on. So this is the sovereignty of the Srimad Bhagavat among the 18 Mahapuranas. Next one please. And this is the transmission. Vishnu, Brahma, up there. Brahma then recites it to Narada. Narada recites it to Vyasa. When you come down, Vyasa recites it to his son Shukadeva, and Shukadeva is reciting it to King Parikshit. That is the frame within which the Bhagavat is written. Quite beautifully done. It's a Jaipur painting. It's quite late as a painting, but I find it very, very attractive in as much as graphically we are being reminded of how important and how sovereign the status of the Bhagavata Purana is. Next one. And now we get into the illustrations. There are as many as 217 pages which are illustrated. Full page illustration, double page illustrations, half illustration, half text, all in Kannada, of course. And now we start looking at what is happening. This episode concerns Kala Yavana, who is a demon, an enemy of Krishna and the Yadavas. But Kala Yavana has a vara which he has received. He will never be killed by a Yadav. So he can't be killed by Krishna himself. So Krishna devises a stratagem, right? He knows that inside a cave there is an old man called Muchukunda who's lying, and Muchukunda is asleep. But the story is that if Muchukunda opens his eyes, the first person who comes in front of his eyes will be reduced to ashes immediately. So, Kali Yavan, bottom left, pursuing Krishna in the lower part of the painting. Next one, please. Like this. Kali Yavan here, and Krishna there. And what is Kali Yavan wearing? Riding boots, right? So, reference to the British, we don't know, right? So, anyway, he's there, and then inside the cave, and just look at the way the painter renders the cave. Just opens the space up, gives it a different background color, and inside, so we are going to see Kali Yavana 3 times. He enters the cave, Muchukund is lying to the left, and he just, inside the cave, darkness and so on, he kicks the figure of Muchukunda, who opens his eyes, and Kali Yavan is immediately reduced to ashes. And then, of course, Muchukunda begs forgiveness of or seeks the blessings of Krishna over there. Now, our eyes, our minds are all around the narrative. But what is the painter doing? Next one, please. Now look at this. The narrative can be done without all this extraordinary rendering of a forest, a hilly kind of a landscape, and so on. The kind of forest or kind of hill you and I will never be able to see. It's all in the painter's head. Next one, please. And in that thing, the entire painting, only in the center is the narrative. The rest of it is all a painterly evocation of a landscape which only the mind's eye can see. That is the magic of these paintings. That is where, in a certain sense, you and I can go wrong, when we only concentrate upon human figures, human action and so on. The rest of it has to be taken bit by bit, slowly, inch by inch, and internalized. Next one, please. This is a complete picture in itself. As you can see, it's a part of the same page, but this is the way the painter's mind works. This lush greenery, these sort of impossible sloping rocks and so on and so forth. There are little bits here and so on, as if these are human eyes or eyes of different kind watching what is happening and so on, like that. That is what makes this manuscript and the quality of it compelling, absolutely compelling. Next one, please. And this, of course, is the mountain on fire. Little bit of text at the bottom, which gives a kind of a caption. The text is all in Sanskrit. The script is Kannada, but the text is entirely Sanskrit. There is not a Kannada word in the script, etc. I don't read Kannada, but I've had friends read it for me and so on. And they say it's all completely the original text of the Bhagavata Purāna. Next one. Where does one rock end and the other begin? Is this flame bright enough? Or do we need a thicker flame, a more intense fire, and so on and so forth? Soldiers are riding through the forest, through the hill and so on. There is a kind of a fortification line which runs through this like in a kind of a defense mechanism of and so on and so forth. Like that. And look at the sky. The convention, the stylization of the clouds in the sky is unbelievable. The variation, these kind of scalloped clouds that we see over there and so on, you just concentrate upon them and they are complete paintings in themselves. So we are, in a certain sense, seeing it with the wrong set of eyes, which we only concentrate upon the narrative. The rest of it has to be slowly, patiently, savoringly taken in. Next one, please. Yeah. We're not used to this. You and I ordinarily, when we look at paintings, we're not used to doing this. But I've taken specially details of the same manuscript and to see for myself, not only for yourself, but to see for myself how does the painter take a natural phenomenon and plays with it, creates patterns, designs at will. Next one, please. An episode which is many people would know about of the Shamantak jewel. There is a jewel which the sun has given, the great god Surya has descended to the earth, and the jewel is lustrous beyond belief. And there is a question, there's a long, complicated story, But this moves from one person to the other, and there are accusations. Even Krishna is accused by some people that he is the one who has, in a certain sense, unfairly taken possession of the Shamantak jewel. He has nothing to do with it, but it's an accusation against him, a charge that he is being dishonest. Now, next one, please. There is a hill inside which a bear king, Jamavanta, whom we have encountered in the Ramayana, of course, lives. Akrura, the king who has followed the Shamantak jewel and so on, a lion takes it, the Jamavanta wants that particular jewel, king kills the lion. Now just concentrate upon the upper half where Jamavanta is killing that particular. The lion is a heraldic lion rather than a real lion, as so to speak, and so on. Just imagine the head of the lion as it is being turned upside down by Jamavanta as he attacks him. And the head again appears at the foot of the lion himself. And look at the background, the colors of the hills and so on, the rocks and so on. Next one. But this is one of the finest pages in the entire manuscript, when Krishna, in order to prove his own innocence, enters and wants to locate the Shamantak jewel. And he realizes that the lion has been killed, so it must be somewhere, and he enters a cave in which he finds that the king of the bears, Jamavanta, has taken the jewel, Shamantak, and given it to his child to play with, something like that. And then we see this. Same figures, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Repeated. The time is moving. Space remains more or less the same. Next one, please. And now we see this from closer. The patterning. Every time the scene moves, the painter changes the configuration, the outside, the area and so on. The duel between Jamavanta, Krishna, and that is the child of Jamavanta towards the extreme right, and the jewel is hanging from the cradle above the baby. Finally, Jamavanta is overpowered, submits himself to the will of Krishna. Not only that, but also offers his daughter in marriage to Krishna, Jamavati. As a design, purely as a design, this is an incomparable picture, at least as I see it. Next one, please. As I said, we are entering the world of the gods. We are not a world visible to you and to me in the ordinary sense of the term. Next one, please. And this is somewhere in the same painting, this detail. The intensity of these colors, the freedom with which the painter is rendering natural phenomena, has to be seen to be believed. Next one, please. Then comes the episode of Krishna and Rukmini. Rukmini is going to be married to somebody else, and she's in love with Krishna and sends a message through a Brahmin asking Krishna to come and rescue her and so on. The story is very well known and so on. Finally, the Sabha where she is going to choose her husband, her mind is set on Krishna, of course, but she enters. And this, the toy-like figures of soldiers on horseback at the bottom, then a whole range of elephants and so on, another range of chariots and so on. The painter completely packs the picture with action. And in the center, a panel which opens up. Rukmini has entered the sabha where she is going to pick the person that she is going to marry. Next one, please. She is being led into the sabha, and this is a confidant of hers. And Rukmini, of course, is trembling with anticipation and uncertainty. Is he there? Will Krishna be there or not? And then finally she espies him. Next one, please. There he is. You can see that extreme right, Krishna, dark-bodied and so on, in that chariot, and everyone else, looking disappointed because they are not the ones going to be chosen. Breathlessly, one follows the narrative. What is going to happen next? And as Krishna moves away with the Rukmini, these tiny little figures of soldiers, all of them as if they are on a parade with the kukris in their hands and so on and so forth, are toy-like, very poorly drawn. Some underling, some pupil of the master painter must have been asked to do that. Chalo bhai bana do. And then sort of one after the other, these toys, wooden toys and so on, so would come in like this and so on. But where the action is, where the main figures are, that is where the eyes are being invited to rest. Next one, please. Then, of course, once Krishna moves off with Rukmini, there is this extraordinary battle. And you could see the din, the skirl, and the blare of the battlefield here. Then, next one, please. We have this, there you are. Who knows who's the enemy, who's a friend, and so on. Everyone is being killed, decapitated, and so on. The painter wants us to understand that enormous sort of a bloodshed resulted from the abduction of Rukmini. Next one, please. And now, he is pursued, Krishna is, by Rukma, that is the brother of Rukmini, by Shishupal and others and so on. And the painter divides the page into 3 registers and changes the background of each register. Yellow there, then suddenly red, then yellow down there. And we'll see this. Next one, please. Like this. There is Rukmini and Krishna in the chariot. There is one enemy, one adversary who is now being taken care of. Next one, please, and we descend. The eyes follow the action. And other adversary of Krishna and Rukmini. Rukmini is now afraid what is going to happen. And then this happens. Next one, please. And then in the third, the lowest register once again. So the events are happening 1, 2, 3, or from bottom to top, or whatever it is, and so on, like this. And you and I are being invited to follow the action in this fashion, breathlessly. Next one, please. After everything, the Rukmini is received into the palace of Krishna, accepted, and there is celebration. One of the few celebratory pages in the entire manuscript. Next one, please. And this is where we are. I'm asking you, there must be painters in this audience. How does the painter run the risk of ruining an entire picture if he does not get the sprinkling of water right? Right? These trajectories of color, skirts falling from top to bottom, bottom to top, and so on and so forth. All these things are done with extraordinary care. A painter would know how risky it is. Next one, please. This is one of the most wonderful episodes in the entire Bhagavata. the Uttararth. The Pandavas are going to build a new capital. And like in our own land, today a whole area has to be leveled, right? Forest has to be burnt. The god Agni is being asked to burn the forest. But Indra, who does not much like Agni, is up there in the heavens, and every time the fire is lit, Indra sends a rain down, so the fire is ineffective. What do? Arjuna is called in, the greatest archer of the Pandavas. And Arjuna says, I have a solution to this. I am going to shoot arrows into the sky at a speed that they will interlock and form a ceiling over the forest. So no rain, not a drop of rain will fall and extinguish the fire needed for this. The Khandavadaha. Look at this, next one please. This is the forest. And if you notice, this diagonal line is the one after the other. The arrows being shot at incredible, dazzling speed. And up there, this zigzag is a canopy formed by the arrows shot by Arjuna, like that. And up there, towards the top left of the painting, Indra, now rendered completely helpless, because the rain is falling, but not a drop comes down and extinguishes the fire. Just look at the forest. Just look at the canopy of arrows up toward the right. Next one, please. This is Agni giving a wish-granting kind of a vara to Arjuna. This is Arjuna seated in this chariot, and that is how the direction of the arrows being shot into the air is rendered. Next one, please. If you are in a hurry and if you want to move from one page to the next, this is your privilege, but also your loss. You have to linger. You are being asked to linger over these details. Next one, please. Next. The interesting thing is, we do not see these scenes in the hands of Rajasthani painters, Pahadi painters, Mughal painters very often. These are themes which are rarely rendered by other painters and so on. But in the Bhagavata Uttarartha, this Mysore painter and his disciples are concentrating on this. This is Narakasura. The Narakasura, the citadel of Narakasura, Satyabhama, Krishna's wife, she says, Narakasura has taken so many damsels and holding them prisoners, and he's an evil man, we must attack. So arise. Now this is a double page, and there must be something like 200, 250 figures on this and so on. Carnage, absolute total carnage. And we see Krishna as Vishnu arrive not once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 8 times he appears within the same frame. But interestingly, it is a citadel, it is an island, and on the high seas, in the midst of which the island is, there are boats which are flying the Union Jack, right? So the painter is taking cognizance of what is happening all around himself. And no surprise there at all. None whatsoever. Because time is not constant, not fixed, changes. Next one, please. Left half. Next one, please. And the right half. You see Krishna on the back of Garuda, arrive there, Krishna on the back of Garuda down there, Krishna on the back of Garuda in the middle, and the fortification of this particular citadel of Narakasura. Next one, please. The drawing is ordinary. The drawing does not have the kind of a verve, the refinement we see in Rajasthani or Pahadi paintings. But the coloring is unmatched. Next one, please. There's a sight for the gods to see. Up there they arrive in their vimanas, right? And the vimanas need some wings and so on, in the eyes of the painter at least, and so on. And so we have them up there and so on. And these soldiers who must have walked out of a British regiment or something like this and so on are all there. Next one, please. And this is the fortification of the citadel. There are circles within circles of fire, of water, of weapons, masonry, and so on, like this. Next one, please. And as you enter the gates, there are 7 entrances or 7 portals, elephants ready to crush the enemy. But everything is vanquished. Next one, please. And when Krishna enters, then Aditi, the mother of Narakasura, submits herself and welcomes Krishna with offerings in her hand. More than 2 seconds, we can see the painting. More than 2 hours, you can linger on it, if your want is like that. Next one. Krishna has many wives, 16,108 to be exact. 16,000 were the ones who were kept prisoners by Narakasura, so he marries all of them. They all want to marry him, he says, all right, fine, you come with me. Right? And then, of course, there are the wives. There is, of course, Rukmini, Satyabhama, and so on and so forth. But Nagnajiti, her father holds a Swayamvar. I have 7 bulls of unmatched strength. Anyone who can overpower them will be deserving of the hand of my daughter. So there we are. Krishna, next one please. Like this. 7 bulls. Now the drawing is impeccable here. This is by a master painter. And if you look at the coloring of the different bulls, it is the same figure Krishna over there, but the bulls, they're absolutely mad with power and so on. And the way he handles them. Next one, please. Like this. It's the same figure, battling one bull, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Not the figure of Krishna, but the bulls are the ones you and I should be concentrating upon. Next one, please. Episode of Banasur and his daughter Usha Aniruddha story, which we all know. Yeah, about 10 to 15 minutes, and I won't keep you for too long. Banasur is losing, and suddenly his foster mother arrives to his help, Kotara, and she suddenly appears and naked, completely naked, no vastra at all on her. And as soon as she appears, Krishna, out of decency, turns his head away. And this is a stratagem devised by Banasur. Next one, please. There we are. And you see Krishna once up there and then second time turning his head away. And I like you to see the quality of the drawing by the master painter. Next one, please. This. So there is a variation in the quality of drawings. The underlings, the pupils, the apprentices do these doll-like sarah figures and so on, whether animals or human beings and so on. But the master painter, when he enters the field, does this. Whether it is Tipanna or Veeranna, we have some names, but none of them appears in this particular text. Next one, please. Pradyumna, son of Krishna, grows up in the home of a demon called Shambhara. And next one, please. But there is the wife of Shambhara, Mayavati. She recognized Krishna for what she is. So there is a battle, and then she takes him through the skies to save him. Beautifully done. The sky. Next one, please. There we see. And while they are wafting through the air or crossing this, then Narad, of course, appears. Next one, please. This is the animal I was talking about, which we saw at the very beginning in the city of Dwaraka, which I can't recognize what this is. And I'll be grateful for any help that anybody has. Next one, please. And suddenly, there are abstracted patterns of color. Spring from nowhere in sight. We have no idea how this kind of thing must have crossed the mind of the painter. Next one, please. A French painter with the name of Francis Ney, would make blobs of color like this and so on. A complete painting in itself. And this is a hill. And look at the colors that the painter uses for this. Next one, please. Now this, to me, is really an extraordinary detail. Balaram is asking the Yamuna to divert its course, and he threatens the Yamuna, and he stands in the waters, and this is a detail at the bottom of that particular picture. What are these? Rocks? What are these? The trees we can recognize, but those patterns up there, in these colors and this kind of a stippling, where do they come from? Do they resemble anything that you and I have seen? Alaukika, not of this world, not of this loka. Next one, please. This Balaram, and this is the detail that I just shared with you. Next one, please. Balaram takes over the role of Krishna. He goes to the gopis and then they get inebriated. Balaram is an inveterate drinker, right? And next one, please. And now we see it's almost as if it is Krishna who's come back to the gopis and so on. In a sylvan setting, he's drinking, they are feeding him, makes love, and embraces somebody or the other and so on. Next one, please. But Balaram also is a devout man who goes on pilgrimages. The river Godavari with 7 streams falling into it. Look at just the design of the page, the patterning. Next one, please. Next. Usha Aniruddha. Usha fallen in love with Aniruddha, and her friend Chitralekha, she doesn't know who Aniruddha is. Chitralekha starts painting the figures of all eligible princes and so on. And finally Usha says, I dreamt of this man whom I'm in love with. And this is a detail, the multi-storied thing. Usha, and it'll take me too long to get into this. Next one, please. But one detail I'll show you. That is Usha towards the left. And in the middle, Chitralekha shows her this portrait. The portrait, as you can see, is in a European frame, right? A kind of a circular oval thing and so on. And she starts wondering, no, it is not him. Somebody like him. It is actually his father, Aniruddha's father, Pradyumna. She says, no, like it. And then finally, you can see the hairdo is different in that frame. And then down below, then she says, this is the man I dreamt of. And then toward the right, everybody else disappears and she holds a private conversation with the man of her dreams. Next one, please. Chitralekha finally locates Aniruddha, flies through the heaven, through the skies, and lifts him. Next one, please. She finds him asleep, picks up the bed along with that, and then the picture has to be read from bottom to top, right? Not top to bottom. And then finally she's up in the skies, and just look at the clouds up there. And so with that, she's going to fly back. The chandeliers are all European, all British, of course. The structure is again very, very, it's unlike anything that we ordinarily see. Next one, please. And the design of the page. Pradyumna has to fight off when he marries Rukmavati, daughter of Rukma. And just look at the pattern. Next one, please. Now. Next one, please. Next. Sometimes it takes you completely by surprise. A double page. Here is Krishna Vishnu, and he has released a number of people who were kings who had been held captive by Jarasandha. And where are they? All the kings. Next one, please. And they are coming down like this. So the double page, from one page to the second, it flows, the drawing does. Next one, please. Like this. Now, the complete picture. That's what I talk about, the design, the sense, the graphic sense that these painters must have had. Next one, please. Balaram gets into anger and he says to the Kauravas, if you behave like this and you are arrogant, I am going to take the whole city of Hastinapur and drag it with the plowshare that I have and sink it into the Ganga. And the whole city, that is Balaram with his plow up there. And the city is now, part of it has already fallen. Next one, please. And everything is shaking at this particular time. Next one, please. And this is the double page that you and I see. The inventiveness of the painter, the way in which he plays, as I said, with space and time. Next one, please. Of this atelier at the court of Krishnaraja III, ODR, great many, as Sir Charanjit Singh mentioned, great many works were done. This is a manuscript here in the collection here in Bangalore. very doesn't have the kind of coloring that the paint, this thing that we talked about. Next one, please. It has wonderful designs. This is not the Bhagavata, this is a different manuscript. Next one, please. A Ramayana, also painted in the same atelier of the Mysore. Next one, please. Wonderful things. Hanuman arriving on that particular mountain to pick up the Sanjeevani. Next one, please. The sense of pattern. Next one, please. A Devi Mahatmya, also from the same atelier. Next one, please. Look at this. Kali, devouring hordes of figures. And so some extraordinary things were happening at the Mysore court. And this manuscript is just one of the great enterprises at that particular court. Next one, please. Could Krishna Raj at the age of 5 envisioned it? I doubt it. I doubt it very much. He's a child, innocent, looking at the world with his eyes. Next one. But when he grows old, as we see him here, between that and this, an enormous amount had happened. My submission is that we need to learn to value these products. The energy, the enterprise, the devotion, the commitment, the innovation at the Mysore court. And somewhere, someone better equipped than I am, more knowledgeable than I am, far more knowledgeable than I am, should be doing it. I hope, as Charanjeev Singh said, that texts have been written in Kannada, not available to the English-speaking world. Some work has been done, but a great deal more needs to be done. And maybe somebody from this learned audience will be the one doing it. May I thank you once again for this.